Hi folks. Today's speaker is me. I'm very sorry about that. My name is Peter. I am one of the co-directors of Genomics Aotearoa, and we had a meeting with our Science Advisory Forum a couple of weeks ago, and they said, hey, it would be really good to have a seminar about where GA is at the moment, and so that is what you're getting. If you expected me to be talking about some interesting science, then you're out of luck. And hopefully next time I can come and talk about some interesting science, because this is going to be fairly what's the word? Mechanical. So I'm going to try and share my slides and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, folks. So thanks very much for dropping by. As I said, my name is Peter Dearden. I'm going to be talking about where we are with Genomics Aotearoa. And I just wanted to start by saying that obviously Genomics Aotearoa, while it's led out of the University of Otago, has a bunch of awesome partners. We used to have 10 of them, but half of them merged into the Bioeconomy Science Institute. And so thanks very much to all of our partners for the work they do and the help they provide the platform. I guess it's really timely to have a bit of an update because you may have been wondering where the hell we've been for the last couple of weeks, years, possibly last year. And so I want to talk through that and some of the things that are coming up that we'd like you to be involved with, and places where we think there's some opportunities that you guys might be interested in. So I'm going to clip through some things fairly quickly, but I wanted to start by saying that because of our partners and because of all of you who have been involved with Genomics Aotearoa platforms and projects and training, etc., we've done a whole load of stuff, and I think it's important to point out some of that stuff. So we've put a lot of work into building capability and capacity for New Zealand. That's a crucial thing for us in terms of genomics and bioinformatics. We've put in place an Indigenous genomics platform, which has funded a bunch of astounding projects in really interesting places. We have carried out world-leading science, absolutely, because we've published in fantastic journals. We have developed key genomic infrastructures, which I think, the highlights are AGTR and Hikikanu, which we'll come to a little bit later. Develop some communities of practice, particularly nucleated by training programs, outreach and education and awareness. And I'm going to show this slide, which is basically all the things that we have done. And I don't really want to go through all of this stuff, but as of earlier this year, these are the things that we have achieved. And so the things that I am most proud of here are that there are 53 postdocs that have been involved in our programs. Not all of them completely funded by us, but partially funded by us. So that's a lot of capability and capacity to be built up over 7 years. Lots of cool projects, lots of media stories, 238 published papers. This is all because of your hard work, and it's kind of amazing, I think. So while it's very easy to think about, or certainly the way I've been thinking about Genomics Aotearoa in the last year is, how do we fit it into a different mindset of a science, the sort of changes to the science system? Well, I think we have to remember that actually we have been remarkably successful so far in terms of a platform. We've done the things that we said we were going to do, and then we've done them well. So what we're looking at is not a complete change to activities, but a bit of a refresh, particularly taking into account some of the new ideas, the new directions that the government has given us. I think more importantly, there are some things that we've learned from this kind of work, and those things are important to remember. One of those is that we can support Indigenous data sovereignty and still do genomics. And I think it's really important to recognize that actually things like the AGDR have been really crucial in allowing us to build trust with Maori communities in such a way that that they are more interested in engaging in genomic research than perhaps they have been in the past. And I think that that's a huge achievement and something that actually we had a lot of pushback about when we started Genomics Aotearoa. So you'll have noticed multiple publications where the data is kept in the AGDR, where Indigenous data sovereignty is maintained and there is a permissioning process, and that is acceptable to international, certainly high impact international journals around the world. I think the other thing is that we have run large genomics projects in New Zealand, and so we do have the people and the ability to do those kinds of things. So we're not in a position where actually we are unable to do large genomics work. We can do it, we have done it, and we should do it in the future. We certainly can demonstrate that our research is beneficial to Aotearoa New Zealand, and that we can work with agencies to implement that research. So we have had a really good pipeline in developing projects that are important to New Zealand and then actually implementing them in such a way that they have impact. A lot of that is around building trust, and so building trust in government agencies, in the health system, in diagnostic labs, and various other places, and particularly with mana whenua groups and with iwi. And I think also we can influence government, but only if we work together and are outward looking, right? So I think that's one of the key lessons here, that Genomics Aotearoa works well because we've had groups of people who have worked well together, have spoken with one voice, and that they have been outward looking. This isn't about, this is about projects which build trust, which look outwards, which have impact. And that's the key thing that we need to continue doing. Cool. All right. So I guess what I want to talk through now is where we are after the last few years and the changes to the science system. We had funding until the end of 2024 from the first tranche, or actually to the middle of 2024, and the first tranche of GA funding. We had that extended to the end of 2024. And now we have a second contract which will take us from 2025 to 2030. Just to be clear, that doesn't involve an increased level in funding. So we have the same level of funding per year that we got in 2017. And if those of you who buy fruit and vegetables at the supermarket might recognize that the price of things have gone up a bit since 2017. So that is a significant constraint on our activities, but I think we can get around some of that. So since that contract has ended, while we signed a new contract with MB for funding for Genomics Aotearoa, they have had a bunch of things that they wanted to do to ensure that we were meeting their priorities. So that involved the development of a strategy document, which actually is on our website. Actually, is a little earlier than the end of 2024, which kind of sets direction. And if you're interested in where, well, at least a year or so ago, a couple of years now, we're thinking where Genomics Aotearoa should go and what it should do, then that's a good document to read. It gives us some ideas of where we're going in the near term and how we might revise that strategy for the future. So we received refunding, but there were some government priorities which were put into that refunding, which we have to address. We addressed those government priorities by developing a new work plan, which took a considerable amount of 2025. That included the development of new KPIs, which provide ways to report on the new government priorities that we have. And alongside that, we developed a document focusing on how we develop economic benefit from Genomics Aotearoa projects. So developing those things is not particularly a lengthy process, but having them all approved by the board and MB has taken a little bit of time. And so we've only actually had KPIs signed off early this year. So we've had a year of developing new ways of thinking about Genomics Aotearoa, new processes, new technologies, new thoughts about how we meet those government priorities. Those are all signed off. And so we're now in the position of being able to say we can move ahead with getting some funding out to you guys to do fantastic projects. The key things that we've been specifically tasked with from the government are things which are perhaps not really a surprise, and also things that actually are not unfamiliar to us. So the first one of those is that we need to be driving project development through strategy. And that's actually something that we've been doing already. So as I said, we have a strategy document. We've always had a strategy which underlies what we were doing in terms of projects, but now that strategy needs to feed more clearly through into our project development process. And so I'll talk through our project development process in a moment, but basically what this means is that we need advice and ideas about what that strategy is, which comes into what projects we might call for as we go through the development of new projects and their actual funding. Second thing is that we should be ensuring economic benefit from our activities, and I'll turn to that in a moment, but just to be clear that that's now a requirement of all our projects have to have some evidence that they might produce economic benefit. And the third thing we were asked to do was to build capability and capacity in biotechnology, which again, I will talk about that in a moment. So we've got these directives. These come straight from the minister, and they say, okay, well, these are the things we want you to do. And so we have had to incorporate these things into our project development processes, into our work plan, and those are also parts of our KPIs, so we need to report on them as well. So the first one of those to really think about is projects and strategy, right? So what the government is asking us to do is to ensure that when we're developing projects, we're starting from the point of view of strategy, okay? So we go, where do we need a project? Where are we missing capability and capacity? What is a technology that might transform something of strategic importance to New Zealand? What this means is that we are a project commissioning body, right? So we're not here to run competitive funding rounds. What we will be saying is, okay, well, strategy-wise, this is where we think a project should lie, and then we will help people commission a project in that space, go through an assessment process and fund it. So our projects need to fill strategic gaps, build strategic capacities, or build a new strategic direction. I think it's really important to think in those points of view. What we can't fund are really, really cool projects that don't have a strategic imperative for New Zealand. Those things should be funded in other places, and I hope you get funding for them, but that's not what Genomics Aotearoa is tasked to do. As I said, strategy will inform the development of projects. I'll talk about that in a moment. And I must say that actually this isn't really a change from what we've been doing in the past. All of our projects have really been driven through the discussions of our science leadership group around what is required in New Zealand, what is strategically needed, and how we put a project in that kind of space. So I'm not sure this is completely business as usual, but it is important to note that that's the space that we work in. I guess the second point is that all of GR projects are tasked with generating economic benefit. And again, it's really important to note that actually in GA 1.0, that was also something that was driving our activities. And so while you may not have thought about it in that way, about 41% of our projects developed IP that was potentially commercializable. 78% of our projects produced or supported economic value. So while they're asking for 100% of our projects to produce or support economic value, we're not that far off. So I think we are well prepared to do this, and we will make some changes in the way we assess projects and also some of our training programs to think about economic value from our projects. One of the really downsides, in my opinion, of this process is effectively we have been told that conservation projects which are specifically designed to target conservation outcomes are not regarded as producing or supporting economic value. I personally think that that's not the case, and we will be arguing that strongly as we go through in the next few years. But currently, we have been told fairly clearly that conservation projects are not going to be funded by Genomics Aotearoa through its normal project process. Alrighty. The third thing that we need to think about is biotechnology. And indeed, we have worked in the biotechnology space before. So we've done projects for Predator-Free 2050, which involved CRISPRing rats to look at ideas about future biocontrol. We've worked with current biotechnology companies providing genomic support for some of their things. And we funded a range of projects, including in IGP projects around biodiscovery. So again, I don't think that this is a particularly onerous bar for us to jump or something unusual. But I think it's important that we think perhaps about projects in biotechnology a little more in terms of their pathway to market and their commercialization. So I think there's an interesting slight change in direction here, and maybe this will be reflected in our training and some of the projects that we're kind of putting forward. Am I going incredibly fast? Oh no, I'm rabbiting well enough and filling up time, so that's good news. So, because of these imperatives and the changes to the work plan, we have made some changes to the way Genomics Aotearoa works. And the first of those is a new project process. And so I'm going to show you what is really a hideous diagram, and I hope that you can interpret that and tell us what and see how it is that we're working in this space. So you'll see what we have here is a horrible line diagram with a whole bunch of groups in it. what we're looking at is the process whereby we make decisions about projects. The start of this project process is in the purple, and it says start here. And so it says there's strategic settings and calls for proposals, which are developed from advice with the board, the International Advisory Panel, and the Scientific Advisory Forum. So that's where that strategic advice comes in. That leads to project development. So there's a project development process, which we probably are set around workshops and discussions with people who work in that space, the development of leadership in that area, and then the production of a project, which then, with advice from the director and the management team, we think about the Vision Mātauranga components, science excellence, the alignment with the Strategic Science Investment Fund, and a commercial assessment. There's advice that goes backwards and forwards, and then once the directors and the management team are pretty comfortable with the project, that will go to an assessor group. I'll talk about that assessor group in a moment. They will make some assessments. It may be that they have some advice, and we go back to the project development process. So in the end, we get to the point where our assessor group, the director and the management team are all comfortable with the project. It then goes for Vision Mātauranga assessment, an International Advisory Panel assessment, and those feed through to a discussion at the board, and it is the board that makes the decision as to whether that project is funded or not funded. The board also may say, well, actually, we need to go back and add some different conditions, or there are some things that we want to have changed. So our board is really critical here. They make the final decisions about what is funded and what is not funded, and I just want to make it clear that our board is not a representative board. It is a skills-based board, and I'll talk a little bit about the board composition a bit later. But they're coming with their skills and their views, particularly around industry, mana whenua views, etc. And they're taking the advice from the directors, the assessors, the VM, the International Advisory Panel, and deciding whether a project is funded or not funded. So that project process is up on our website. If it's already made your eyes bleed, I apologize for the colors. I think I was hallucinating when I made the diagram. But this is the kind of process that is in our work plan and will help us drive the development of strategically important projects and then assess them thoroughly so we know that they're going to be effective once we get the funding out there. Second change we've had to make is that our science leadership team, who played a really important role in GA 1.0 in developing projects and assessing them, becomes a science advisory forum. Right? What that means is that they're going to have no role in the assessment of projects, but they are really important in helping to set the strategy. So this is the group which will drive what projects are funded, or what projects come up for funding, what areas we might fund a project in, the best way to describe it. They help set that strategy and ensure that is fit for purpose. Now, our Science Advisory Forum, the members of that represent our partners, so the institutions that many of you work for, and their role is also to consult within those institutions. So they're coming to provide the views of sectors and partners and end users and research institutions, and they'll come and help us make sure that strategy works and place projects in the right space. Now, members of our science leadership team will also be involved in assessment, but not as a whole, right? So they may be members of our College of Assessors, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay. We have refreshed our board, and actually, I missed a slide, not to worry. So unfortunately, our board chair, Dr. William Rolston, has stepped down, which is sad, as he's been a remarkable advocate for us and has been really helpful in helping us navigate those first years of Genomics Aotearoa. We have just appointed a new board chair, and that's Emeritus Professor Roberta Farrell. And she has an enormous amount of experience in biotechnology and academia and industry and governance. So brings a whole load of skills that I think will be really, really important to us. And I'm delighted that she's agreed to be our new board chair. We have a new board member, Brendan O'Connell, who's the CEO of Agritech New Zealand. And again, here is somebody who has experience in that commercial sector, particularly in agritech. And gives us more commercialization experience at the board level. So the rest of our board is staying on, so we still have fantastic people who have long experience with Genomics Aotearoa. So I'm really pleased about the refreshment of the board. These are going to be great people, and I'm looking forward to working with them to help us set the direction for Genomics Aotearoa and help us with project assessment. We're also, as I mentioned earlier, putting together a college of assessors. So what we are doing is inviting individuals to become part of our assessor group. So these are people with key expertise, but they might be that might be expertise in genomics or commercialization or all of the other things that Genomics Aotearoa touches. Each of those assessors will be approved by our board. If you're interested in joining the College of Assessors, let us know, and we'll send you a form and you can fill it in, and the board will have a look at your experience and say, yes, there's somebody we would really like to be involved in assessing our projects. What that doesn't mean is that all of these people are involved in the assessment of all projects. What actually happens is that we're going to pick key assessors for each project, and each of the assessors for that project will be approved by the board. So this gives us some way of ensuring that we're accessing the expertise of the people who work with Genomics Aotearoa, so they can help us with assessment of projects, but also making sure that we're doing things in such a way that it's not that is perhaps less insular than it has been in the past. So if you're interested in being involved in the assessment of projects, then send us an email, and there's an email address on one of my last slides. Okay. Oh, right, we've also got some new people around for our management team. And so these are the people who do the vast amount of the work while I just sit here and flap my lips at you. So some of these people you may know, others are new and in exciting positions. So please reach out if you are interested in any of those areas. So we have Chloe, who is running our training programs, which I will touch on briefly, but that training is going on as normal, doing fantastic things. So if you've got any questions, then reach out to Chloe. Tanis is particularly supporting the AGDR and the relationship with Kaitiaki in the AGDR. So please, if you have data sets that you want to get into the AGDR and you're interested in and want to know about how you get data sets into the AGDR, then Tanis is a good person to contact. Tracy, who's been our Vision Mātauranga coordinator for some time now, is really in charge of the Indigenous Genomics platform. And if you've got questions around that, then she's the person to contact. Lucy is our new Research Horizons Manager. She has long experience in managing research platforms like this one, including working with Tanifa, and she's going to be in charge of looking after our project process, looking after projects themselves, so liaison with projects as they run, and also the assessment of projects. And finally, Jess, who's been with us for a while, who is the person who emails you about reporting, about contracts, and about seminars, and she's going to be running those things. And so if you get emails from Jess, those are the ones you have to reply to instantly, because it's something to do with us reporting to MB or something to do with your contract running out and you stop being paid. So these are the key people who do all the work, and feel free to contact them. And just from my point of view, I am immensely grateful to all of them, because otherwise Genomics Aotearoa really wouldn't work. Okay. I also wanted to mention that we have and have had for some time an Indigenous Genomics platform, which funds iwi or mana whenua-led projects. So these projects really need to come to us from iwi or mana whenua. That doesn't mean that scientists can't be involved in helping nucleate those projects, but the aim here is to build trust in those communities for people to start using genomic tools to deal with issues that are driven by iwi and mana whenua needs. We have, in fact, increased the budget slightly for these projects, and there's a new strategy document which has been approved by the board. That strategy document really points out that actually it would be nice to get some of these Indigenous genomics platforms to be a bit larger, to have a more holistic approach, and perhaps for them to be joined up a bit more. So there's Tracy in particular is doing a lot of thinking about how to get particular groups to work together to develop these larger and more holistic projects. So that work is going on at the moment. If you have interest in that or some ideas, then please talk to Tracy. All right. There are a few things that haven't changed. And the first one of those is AGDR, so the Aotearoa Genomic Data Repository is still up and running and going from strength to strength. It's building up its numbers of data sets. The role of Kaitiaki in looking after those data sets seems to be working kind of well. There are things that are being discussed in the future about how AGDR might change. For example, we're thinking about federated data, where actually data might be held in different servers around the country under other people's governance, but AGDR accesses those things. We're interested in how we ensure that data sovereignty is kept, and we have lots of international interest in the AGDR and how it might be spread to other locations. So AGDR is still there, it's going strong. We are continuing to fund it and regard it as perhaps one of the most important outcomes of Genomics Aotearoa. We're also supporting Heikikano, the very own project. So this project started with the sequencing of large numbers of Maori genomes. That data has been aggregated, and now clinicians and researchers can access that data to look at the appearance of variants in population. Obviously, again, there's a permissioning process, but we're supporting that and supporting developments around keeping that variome going and perhaps adding some different ways of accessing that data. And the third thing, most importantly, is training. Again, our training program has been huge. Lots of people have been trained with Genomics Aotearoa. We are continuing to run our training program. Chloe has done a fantastic job in reorganizing it and thinking about different tiers of training. But again, if you have particular training needs that you're interested in, or you would like to be involved in giving training yourself, or the particular things you want to learn about, now please get in touch, because we can cater to some changes, and we're obviously really interested in new training opportunities that we can push out there. Remember, all of our training materials are on our Genomics Aotearoa GitHub site, so it may be worth, if you're thinking of going to some of those training sessions, having a look through and seeing what level you might access it, or what skills you have, and whether these training opportunities are at the right level for you. And I have no idea what the next slide is. Okay. So there are some challenges, I think, that we need to worry about in the next few years of Genomics Aotearoa. The first one of those is the merging of the CRI. So as I mentioned at the start, many of our partners from the CRIs are now merged into one giant conglomerate, the BSI. How we work with the BSI and how they work with us is an ongoing conversation. But I think it's what worries me is that in the merging of these systems and the recent news that there will be job losses from BSI worry me about how we continue those connections. There is so much expertise and skills within BSI, and it would be sad for us to lose that. The next thing I think we need to worry about is that our science system, I mean, if we're not worrying about this, then everyone should be, and our science system is being changed. We have this sort of announcement that there's a pillar-based science system. How Genomics Aotearoa fits into that, we don't know. How much of that is going to affect how Genomics Aotearoa works is unknown. What I really don't want to do is have to start revising the work plan and all of that work that's gone on, which has been slow and painful, because we have this new pillar-based system. And so we need to find ways to work with it. We just don't really know what the outcome of that will be. The third thing we've got to worry about is that MB has been funding a bunch of other platforms, and while it's great, we have connections with many of them and are trying to find ways to have sort of management meetings with those platforms. Some of those platforms are in spaces where we already work, and so we need to think about how we work with them. I think particularly in areas of AI, where we've done quite a lot of work in AI and genomics and are planning more, and in biodiscovery. And so how we work with those new platforms is going to be sort of interesting questions. I think these are challenges, but I don't think any of them are existential ones, right? Genomics Aotearoa will manage to work with these people, and we will work with them effectively. And we hope that actually some of the learnings that we've had, and particularly technologies we developed, like the AGTR, might underpin some of those platforms as well, right? When we're building national infrastructure, we're hoping that actually people will recognize that that national infrastructure is something that is already there and is useful to them. Okay. So what's happening at the moment? It's probably the one slide that you actually wanted to hear about, but you've had to listen to me rabbit on for several hours. Okay, so the most important thing here is that currently we're in the process of actually funding some projects. We have a new project which is being commissioned on artificial intelligence in animal and plant breeding. BSI leading the development of that project. It came after a couple of workshops and discussions about what was needed in that space. And so we're hoping that that project will be funded in the near future, and we'll be doing some work around how we can transform particularly the computational approaches we use to deal with large data sets and how that might be used in both animal and plant breeding. So that's really cool. There's a new project which we're talking about being commissioned on tracing infectious disease in New Zealand. We're still at the sort of workshop stage and thinking about how that project will be developed, but that project probably, we're not there to be able to say this is what the project is going to look like, but certainly we think there's work that needs to be done around using genomics to help track infectious diseases in New Zealand, particularly linking in diagnostic labs and being able to take what is a kind of fractured approach to tracing these diseases and put it into a national context. So some tools are desperately needed in that space, and that's where we think a project will be formed. There are currently a range of IGP projects being developed, which involve quite intense discussions with iwi and Mana Whenua, which is really interesting. And we're about to announce a strategic area for our environmental mission. So that's the start of the process of developing a project in the environmental space. So there are projects coming online where we absolutely recognize that it is difficult because we have not really funded very much for the past year. And so we're really trying to get these projects up and underway in the near future so that we can start doing research, but also support those people who are key parts of Genomics Aotearoa. There are some other things coming up. These are not imminent in that we have some work to do around some of them, but one of those is a prestigious fellowship scheme where we know that in the past Genomics Aotearoa has supported a lot of postdoctoral researchers. And what we would like to do is say, well, actually, having developed that capability, the next step in the process is taking postdoctoral fellows from being on soft money to getting them into positions in universities and into the new PROs. And so we think there's a fellowship scheme kind of approach there that we'd like to undertake. And we've developed actually much of the information. We're going through consultation about what that fellowship scheme might look like at the moment, with the hope that we'll get that to the board at our next board meeting and start funding a very small number, unfortunately, of fellowships in the next couple of months. So look out for that opportunity. I think if what we're hoping for is that this is the key piece of the career puzzle that might help people move from the soft money into being able to take up those further opportunities and to build their careers in genomics. So look out for that. We will, fingers crossed, be having an annual meeting this year, hopefully sometime later in the year. So there might be some announcements around that. We'd really like to see you all and to have a conversation about where things are going. Really, our annual meetings are a good opportunity for us to learn about opportunities, and all of that annual meeting stuff feeds into strategy development and the development of new projects. So we really want to have an opportunity to talk to you out in the community and to bring you in and have a discussion about what's going on and what cool things are underway and how that might feed through into our activities. Not really up and coming, but we are obviously continuing our training, but we also want to think about training around commercialization opportunities. We're in discussions about what that might look like. So that includes things like intellectual property and how that might be handled, but also commercialization, even possibly how to start up companies. So we're hoping to feed these things into our training program. So we might have online training in these commercialization activities that you might be interested in. If you are interested in those things, then it would be really useful if you could email us and let us know what sort of things you actually would feel like are gaps in your knowledge around commercialization, because we can attempt to try and fill some of those things. And finally, we are going to have an amazing seminar series, and the next amazing seminar is actually going to start after this one. So in 2 weeks' time, we have an amazing seminar lined up, and actually we have some really cool people who are talking in the next half year. So make sure that this is in your diary and that you're coming back, because we've got some fantastic seminars coming up after this rather dull one, which you'll be glad we're coming to the end of. So if you want to get in touch, you want to get involved, please email us. There's an email address there. We will make sure that that email gets to the right person. We may develop some more email addresses in the near future. We have a website where much of what I've talked about is there, particularly our strategy documents, our new project process, and our website will be refreshed in the next few months. So please get in touch. We want to hear from you. We want, everything you bring to us might be something that we're interested in terms of the development of new projects or new opportunities, but also what it is that you as a community need from us to get you upskilled, to get you involved, and to get your research funded if it fits our strategic needs. Before I finish, I'd just like to say thanks to our partners and the Science Advisory Forum. I think both our partners and the Science Advisory Forum have been incredibly patient with us as we have dealt with the refreshing of the platform. And so thanks for that. That's been really helpful. And we're looking forward to being a little more engaged as we now have the opportunity to start funding projects. I'd like to thank the GA team, who have worked incredibly hard over the past year or so to try and get us up and running. And have also spent a great deal of time making sure that Mick and I are actually organised, which is good. And so I think we're in a really good position to help manage projects and make sure that they're on track. And I think that's going to work better than it has in the past. So I'm really grateful to those people. And remember, all of this time we've still been running training, and so that's another fantastic achievement. And I'd like to thank MB, who have been honest and open with their dealing with us, and we're recognising that they're under lots of constraints as well. So thanks to them. Finally, I'd just like to say that I'd really like to think that we now are having reorganised ourselves. We're back. We are going to be funding projects. We hope that means that we're going to be building the capability and capacity we have done in the past. And so I just wanted to express that through my favourite whakatauki, which is Hareto waka ki te whetu, kei ora ki te titi, which means make sure you hitch your waka to a star rather than to a glowworm. And I'm hoping that we are back being a star rather than being a rather dull glowworm. So thanks so much. And I'm going to stop sharing as soon as this stops spinning around in circles, and we are going to have plenty of time for questions. So thank you very much. And Jean has asked the question, how does the tracing infectious diseases fit with the infectious diseases platform? Yeah, absolutely good question. And we're actually talking about the infectious diseases platform about that. One of the reasons I think it's important to think about projects which might be jointly funded, and that is not a decision that's been made yet, but actually meet two of our strategic imperatives, is because, as I told you, we have only the amount of money that we've had in 2017. So if we can get to the point where we can say that actually we can get funding inputs from other platforms which might meet their strategic needs, then that's something we're very much interested in. What that is, it doesn't mean is that we're not going to be funding things that are strategically important to us. What it does mean is if there are partnerships that we can look for, then we're going to look for those things and try and make them work so that we can, so that we can maximize our output for the amount of investment we're in. Claire, hi Claire. Sorry, I missed your question, John. I'll get back to you. Do we just email if you want to get involved? Hey, yeah, look, we don't know what we don't know. So email, come and talk to Mick or I, come and talk to any of the management people. Get in touch any way you like, and we will engage. So this is about getting involved, but while one of the things that we are in the position of is that because we've had to do quite a lot of this work getting the investment and the work plan in the right shape, that we have lost touch a little bit with our network. And so what we don't want to do is get in the position where, hey, you guys are doing awesome things and we don't know about them. So yeah, send us an email. An email at least we know we will have on record, but sure, come and talk to us, send an email. I'm happy to have discussions. Mick and I are sort of thinking that we probably come round our partners and have a chat with many of you in the near future. But yeah, get in touch any way you can, but the surest way at the moment is to send an email and it'll get to the right person. Jean Jacobs has asked us about new partners and associate partners, and that's a really good question. We have a number of institutions who are interested in joining us in the partnership, and that's a good thing. We will be talking with those people in the next few weeks. One of the things we've had to do is refresh the agreement between our partners, and we want to make sure that we actually deal with that with the partners who've been with us all this time, rather than doing that and having new partners join. So we're going to get that agreement signed, which is imminent, and then we're going to talk to some new potential partners. If you're interested in partnering with us, that'd be great. Come and have a chat with us, because we're very keen to engage in new opportunities. Jean also talks about associate partners who have always been people who have had an association with us. Those people are far more important now than they have been, and we see them as some of the key people for the commercialization of the activities coming out of our projects. And so if you're a company or you're interested in implementing genomics in your operations or something, then again, we're really keen to talk to you and make sure that we're in contact with you and involved in the development of project processes. Robert asks, has there been any discussion about fit with the pillars? Thanks. One of the things, let's just be arrogant about this. You might have noticed that 3 of those pillars are the 3 missions that Genomics Aotearoa has really always worked on. So I think that MB is copying us, putting in their pillars rather than us having to chase them. I think that actually we fit very well with the 4-pillar model, right? So it's kind of health, it's kind of agriculture, and it's kind of environment stuff, and then it's sort of technological things. I think in all of those spaces we have been innovators in New Zealand. I think the problem is with the pillar approach is that it kind of isolates this kind of technological stuff away from the actual places where you might implement them, which are really then which are around environment and health, etc. So I'm hoping that actually we are seen as an exemplar of how we can use these sorts of the pillar approach to actually have an effective impact out there in the community. Good. So yeah, have there been discussions? Not really. I think actually it's not very clear where we are with the pillars in terms from the science system point of view. Tammy says, Kia ora, thanks heaps for the update. RGP project assessed using the same process or an aligned process? An aligned process, probably the same structure, but the assessor group will be a different one, because obviously we want to make sure that what we're valuing Indigenous input, Mātauranga Māori, the development of relationships. So part of that is choosing approvers, and that assessment process will be under the control of Tracy, who was Vision Mātauranga coordinator. So it's an aligned process. It looks very similar, but the assessment will be perhaps done a little bit more differently. Mark says, in some ways, the merger of the CRI should make the partner process easier. That's right, and we would love that to be the case. But let's see how it goes. I guess my real concern is actually the time it's going to take for places like BSI to really sort through the consequences of those mergers and still produce some things. But yes, I think in terms of partnership, I'm really keen to see new partners come on, and actually merging some of those CRIs might make this a little bit easier. Any more questions? I love questions. I don't think you've asked enough. Jess has asked me if I can just tell you a fun bug fact, but I guess I think it's worth pointing out that new DNA evidence suggests that every single one of you on this call is carrying eyebrow mites. So if your eyebrows are itchy, that's probably because you have a small parasitic mite living in your sebaceous glands. Is that good enough, Jess? It's not really a fun fact. That's the one, Demodex. Well done. Okay. Last chance. If there are any more questions out there, as I say, feel free to get in contact. We'd love to hear from you on any kind of thing. If you want to email me, that was my email address. Feel free to email me. Otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in. It's a delight to virtually see you all. Hopefully that talk wasn't too incoherent. We will probably make those slides available after people who are smarter than me have checked that there's nothing awful in them, and bung them on our website somewhere. Otherwise, thanks very much. Have a lovely afternoon and weekend, and we'll see you at the seminar in a couple of weeks where awesome science will be talked about. Thanks very much and goodbye.